Hey there. Now, one of the issues that you can face as a photographer might be photographing a subject in multiple ways, where one photo will have part of the subject in focus and part of it not. Maybe you'll recompose the focus point, and now the other part of the subject will be in focus, but the part that was in focus in the last shot is no longer. Well, one of the features, or the new features here inside of CS4, is the ability to extend that depth of field. So it is mainly a photography related feature, and we can do that. In this example here, I've got 3 photos, so you can, there's an auto blend zip file. If you unzip that, you'll see that there's a bunch of photos inside here. I'm going to work with the 3 flower photos first, and you can see I had my camera set up on a tripod. Okay, and I just took 3 different exposures. I'm going to go up to the Tools menu in Bridge and go down to Photoshop and go to Load Files into Photoshop Layers. And I have a whole video in the Bridge section of this course where I talk about this feature. But I'm going to go to Load Files into Photoshop Layers. It's not going to open up separate images for me. It's going to take all 3 of those and load them into the same document, which is pretty cool. Okay, there is another new feature here. If you go under File and you go down to Scripts, you can come inside here and you can load the files into a stack. All right, and that's another way of kind of doing the same thing. You come into this dialog box, you could choose the files, you could choose an entire folder and whatnot. I kind of like the one from Bridge a little bit better. All right, so now I've got all 3 of these photos as layers here, and you can see in the bottom one where I've kind of focused in on the center. And then the next one here focused in toward the back of the flower, and the last one here I focused more toward the front. Now what I want to do is be able to extend the depth of field and combine all of these together without going in and masking and doing the work myself. Okay? By the way, as you're watching this, just keep in mind I've got a lot more information on this toward the end of the video where I talk about some different uses and my feelings on this tool. So make sure you make it through to the end. You don't just watch how the feature works, because there's some interesting stuff there. But anyway, I'm going to select all layers. Just click on one and shift click on another one. And then come up to the edit menu, go down to auto blend. All right, and this feature is not new. We had auto blend in CS3, but there's an option down here for stack images. All right, I'm going to turn that option on. And I'm also going to turn on seamless tones and colors. Now, this is an image that's a little bit difficult to show you what it does, but I've got another image where you're going to see exactly where this one comes in. So just bear with me for a moment. The main thing is here, we're stacking the images to extend the depth of field. So I'm going to hit OK here. And I'll be honest with you, this one takes a little bit of time to run, and it really just depends on the photos that you're working with. As far as Photoshop's concerned, there's some fairly large amount of detail here that it's going to have to work with and go through and mask. So this one's going to take a while. In fact, I've rehearsed this before, and I know it takes so long in the area of right around 3 minutes that I'm not just going to continue to talk for 3 minutes. I'm going to use the magic of post-production, and the next time you see me in 1 second, 3 minutes will have gone by and this dialog box will be gone. All right, I'm back, and it was probably only a few seconds for you, but it was about a good 4 minutes for me, and that's how long it took Photoshop to do this. Now, before I go further and examine this, because we do have some examining to do here, if you're asking yourself, why didn't you just shoot this at like F22 to capture the whole thing? You've got 2 problems with that. One, mentioned earlier, we're talking about the subject here. If I shot this at F22, I'd be bringing the background, which here it's not a problem because the background's black. But in another setting, I'd be bringing the background more into focus. And the other thing is F22 is going to require me to leave the shutter open a lot longer. If you're outside and you're shooting these things, there's a lot more room for error. If you have the shutter open longer, wind can come by, things can move. So that's why we can do this and shoot, basically wide open like I did here, and bring in and extend the depth of field inside of Photoshop. Now, take a look at what it's done here. Some pretty crazy things with masks in the layers palette. And that's pretty cool. It's given me a really, really good starting point. And I say starting point because if you zoom in, all right, you're going to notice we have some issues here. we've got some of these little fringes around the edges here. Now, I could fix this. I could adjust the masks. If you're savvy enough to know how to work with black and white and paint on these masks, you can fix it that way. You can fix it the really easy way. Just grab a black paintbrush and just paint over onto the edges here, create a new layer, and just paint over onto the edges, and you can fix it that way too. Okay, so that's one of the ways where if it doesn't always work perfectly like it did not here, you could come in and fix it. And that's the key. If you're wondering, Matt, why did you show me this? Because this was my first thought when I heard of this feature, was this is where I would use it. Okay, and this was my results. Okay, so I kind of just wanted to be honest with you here. These are the first results I had. I didn't want to just pick a perfect demo. I'm going to show you a perfect demo in a second, but I didn't want to just pick a perfect demo. This is real world for me, and this is what happened. I do see product photographers using this a lot because take a look at this. These are the files that Adobe uses to demo with, and I'm not going to run it all over again. You see I've already ran the auto blend on this, and it worked great. Okay, it worked great. I see this more closely tied to product photography where you're shooting things close up and you might have a depth of field problem. All right, well, this is where it worked perfectly. And all I did, just edit, go down to auto blend layers. I made sure I left seamless tones and colors on because that's what gave me such a good blend. You want to see what happens when I left it off? Here's another example. The only difference between this and the last one is I left that checkbox off. So it blended and extended the depth of field just fine, but you can see what it's done to the tones and the colors. It did not blend those things together. So that's kind of gives you a glimpse into what that little checkbox does. Okay. In the end, I like where it's heading. I think it's a neat feature. I'm not sure I'll always use it because I'm not crazy about the fringes here. That said, if I do want to extend the depth of field in something like this, I like having the starting point of all the layer masks built already to where I don't have to build all that. I can just come in here and maybe do some cleanup work in on the end.